So I just got back from seeing Rogue One, a Star Wars story, and honestly, I'm not really sure how I feel about it. I'm not really sure how to go about reviewing this one. I can't really say that it's best Star Wars out there because honestly, I don't think it is, and that's not just me saying I prefer the classic stuff, which I mean it's true, but I mean Empire Strikes Back is my favorite movie in the series, but you're also talking to somebody that actually really enjoyed Phantom Menace. Yes, I know it's blasphemy, but I liked it. I thought Jar Jar Binks was funny. That's just me. But Rogue One is the first of the quote unquote Star Wars stories. They're supposed to basically fill in events that happen throughout the series and to kind of tide fans over between the major movies of the series, the episodes 7, 8, 9, however long they keep it going. But I'm not really sure this movie did it. I don't really. I, I guess can't really say that it feels 100% like Star Wars to me. Um, I'm I'm not gonna go through my usual go through the plot line, spoil it. I mean, I'll talk about a few things here and there. Like the movie did some things that I really liked, and it did some things that I was really not crazy about. But I mean, if you want my opinion right now as to whether to see it or not, go ahead, see it. It it covers how the Rebel Alliance gets a hold of the Death Star plans, and it does that in a pretty good way. It's although granted, it's not it's not LucasArts' first trip down that well. The story of the Death Star plans have also been seen in the very first level of the game Dark Forces for the PC and the PS1, and it played a huge role in Star Wars Lethal Alliance for the PSP and the DS. But I guess they felt we needed a big screen version of how they get the plans, and the movie does deliver on that part. And like the storyline itself, it's interesting. It basically focuses on a woman named Jin Urso, whose family has basically been taken from her by the Empire, and she ends up joining the Alliance to try to get some measure of payback and to basically try to help the Alliance out. And helping her is a gang of a variety of different characters. You've got Cassian Andor, who he's a he's he's a captain. He's a ship pilot. He's basically the Han Solo archetype for this story, and he actually has a little bit of an interesting thing that, as well, we see throughout the movie that the rebels they have a good cause, but they're not always the nicest about going about it. And as part of the alliance, he's had to do a lot of questionable things and a lot of things that he ends up regretting. And this comes to a head in one scene that it it's interesting. It takes place on this world that there's an imperial facility that's managed by Jin's father, which okay, this is a scene that kind of falls under where stuff that I don't really like. He's given orders from a man named General Draven, who has never shown up in any of the books or comics as far as I'm aware. If I'm wrong, then somebody write to me, tell me about it, and I'll admit I was wrong. But I mean, you think that becoming a general would be a pretty big thing, but yeah, I've never heard of this guy. Anyways, Draven says, Yeah, I know they said that we're supposed to extract this guy, but I want you to kill him instead. And it culminates in a scene where we actually see through Cassian's sniper scope as he's about to pull the trigger on Jin's dad, and then pulls away. Except the Rebel Alliance decides to mount a strike on that facility, and one of their bombs ends up killing the guy anyway. So drama, but it really didn't accomplish very much. The guy still ended up dead. So, and also actually, let me actually go back to the beginning of the movie because it takes place when Jin's a little girl. Might have had a little video pause there, if so, I apologize. Um, Jin, her father Galen Urso, and her mother are living on this small moisture farm on this one planet when they're paid a visit by the Empire, by a party led by a guy named Director Krennig, who basically, for those who are Star Wars fans, he looks like he's been taking fashion advice from Grand Admiral Thrawn. He's wearing like the white uniform like a Grand Admiral would wear, except he adds like this long cape to it. Anyways, he's come to bring Galen back to the Empire, and Galen tells his wife and he tells Jin to go run and hide and to try to escape, which they do only for Jin's mother to do something incredibly stupid and decide to turn around, go right back over to Galen, and pull a blaster pistol on Krennig. As you can guess, this does not end well, and she ends up getting gunned down by stormtroopers. Brilliant. Just brilliant. Um, so Jin ends up escaping and being found by this rebel leader named Sol Guerrera, who ends up running this separate rebel cell on this world called Jeddah. But again, I'm getting into story details, and I might talk a little bit about it, but that's not really why I'm doing this video. Um, anyways, later, heck, I'll just go ahead and do the full synopsis and everything too. We later cut to when Jin's an adult, and she's been arrested for we don't know what, and she's being taken to an Imperial labor camp, and she gets freed by the Rebel Alliance and taken to Yavin 4, and she's basically told, like, hey, we want to find your dad, we want to see what he's working on, we want to know how to stop it. So after a little hesitation, it's like, okay, fine. And so they end up going to Jeddah to find Sol Guerrera. And after a run in with some stormtroopers, they eventually end up being taken to him, along with running into the way with a temple guardian who, for life of me, I can't even remember the guy's name. He's basically a blind kung fu. He's able to use the Force, but he's not a Jedi. And he's assisted by this great big hulking dude with a blast with heavy blaster rifles out the ass and a suit of red blaster armor. He looks pretty badass, but this actually brings me to another complaint I have with the movie, where it introduces a lot of characters, and they seem interesting at the time, but you're not going to remember very many of them. You're not going to remember their names or anything. I mean, Jin, Krennig, and Cassian are the main ones I remember. Oh, and Cassian has a reprogrammed Imperial droid called K2SO that ends up supplying a lot of the sarcastic comedy relief. And he ends up being one of my favorite characters throughout the movie. But anyways, so they end up getting captured and taken to Soul's lair, where Soul shows them a hologram that he'd been given by Bodhi, a former TIE pilot who Galen sent to defect to the rebellion and to give Soul this hologram, who somehow he knew that it would end up in Jin's hands, where he reveals, surprise, surprise, the famous thermal exhaust port from the first Star Wars movie. He actually put that in there intentionally. He's like, you guys are going to need a way to blow this up. So I put a weakness into the reactor. If you get the plans, you'll find it and you'll know how to destroy this thing. So, of course, the Empire comes a calling with the Death Star, which ends up being quite operational. And they blow up Jeddah, though though the rebels are most of them are able to escape, except Soul stays behind. He's like, you guys have to keep the fight going. You have to protect the dream. I'm just gonna stay here and let myself die. And we see him as this big wall of Earth just like comes roaring at him and knocks out his whole headquarters. And CGI wise, it's a really pretty scene for as tragic and devastating as it is. The graphics in this movie, sorry, I'm used to games. The graphics in this movie, the CGI work, for the most part, is actually really well done. Well, one thing that I actually love that I have to give them credit for is they brought back Grand Moff Tarkin, and they actually had a stand-in for Tarkin, and they basically CGI'd Peter Cushing over this guy. And honestly, if you didn't know about it, you would have thought that old Peter Cushing was right there in the movie. That he was, it actually looked that well done. I was pleasantly impressed. I was pleasantly surprised with that part. So, for all intents and purposes, you have Grand Moff Tarkin played by Peter Cushing. On the other hand, they tried doing this trick toward the end of the movie with Princess Leia showing up, supposedly, and being a CGI Carrie Fisher, but that one didn't really look as convincing to me, to be honest with you. I don't know why, but I was able to, like, the lighting on her face was off and stuff, and I was able to, like, that one's fake. If yeah, that is, yeah, no. But the Tarkin one, really well done. So, anyways, so the rebels escape from Jeddah, and they're told, thanks to running into Bodhi, who incidentally was locked in the cell next door to where the rebels were, that Galen is on this planet Edu. Yeah, Edu. That's basically, it looks to basically pretty much be a rainy, storm-covered desert planet. And Bodhi and Cassian go out to find him, and Cassian sends Bodhi away while he gets ready to make the shot and kill him. But I pretty much told you how that scene went already. He ends up not being able to pull the trigger. Rebel Alliance storms the facility for reasons that... Actually, why did they storm it on that one? Oh yeah, at the time when they got to the planet, they have to fly through this canyon, and they basically end up crashing the ship, and their signal goes down. So Draven sends a squadron of X-wings to go after them, after the facility and blow it up. That was it. So anyway, so that whole thing happens. Galen gets killed. There's this last scene where he tells Jin, "There's so much I wanted to tell you." Dies, and making her whole thing about wanting to finding her dad come to a tragic end. So they manage to escape, and they fly back to Yavin 4, make the briefing. But for being the leaders of the Rebel Alliance, a lot of the people there struck me as cowards, to be honest with you. I mean, you knew joining the Alliance that you're going to be called on to fight, but a lot of them were like, we can't take on the Empire. They have a planet buster. We don't. So, and a lot of them don't really believe that Jin really knows, one, that they don't believe the Death Star is real, or two, they believe it does, but they don't believe that there's a way to stop it, and they don't believe that the plans are on this planet Scardiff, where the holographic message said that they were. So Jin and a lot of the other main characters end up getting a party together, and they basically go down to Scardiff to try to get the Death Star plans themselves. And there's this huge running action sequence throughout this whole scene where a lot of the generic no-name rebels are going along, blowing stuff up, getting into fights with stormtroopers. And while KTSO, Cassian, and Jin go into this central tower to get the Death Star plans. Now, there's not really that much to tell. I mean, they eventually get the plans, but almost all the members of the Rogue One party, as they call themselves, ends up getting killed off in the process, doing part of their job. That it just so I'm just trying to wrap my head around some of this stuff. Like they end up getting killed throughout the battle. KTSO basically gives his life so that Jin and Cassian could get the plans, which they eventually get the plans and they manage to transmit to the Rebel Alliance after shooting. Actually, this brings me to another complaint I thought about. In the movies beforehand, and pretty much anything else, blasters seem like dead. But we see people be able to take blaster shots out the ass and still keep on walking. Like, Krennic gets shot in the back, and then he later manages to wake up just in time to see the Death Star come up over the horizon and blow up Scardiff. Which, this brings me to the other thing that I really dislike about the movie. None of the main characters make it out alive. You expect there to be some dramatic escape scene where Cassian and Jin are trying to find a ship to escape? No, they get to a beach, they embrace, just in time for the energy wave from the Death Star's blast to come along and vaporize them. But hey, Rebel Alliance has their Death Star plans now. And after admittedly a cool sequence where Darth Vader shows up and starts swinging his lightsaber around, knocking out rebels right and left. A lot of the rebels end up managing to escape in the ship that ends up being the rebel ship we see at the beginning of Episode 4, A New Hope, the original Star Wars. And that's where we see bad CGI Princess Leia saying, "They brought us hope." Now, that's actually a really short recap for me, but honestly, that's pretty much all there was to the story. Just rebels meet up, get the Death Star plans, send them to the Alliance, and get killed off. So I guess that's why it doesn't really feel like a Star Wars movie to me. I mean, yeah, Star Wars movies can get dark. I mean, Revenge of the Sith, the whole Jedi Purge thing, that was really dark. Um, the a lot of Empire Strikes Back was, especially toward the ending, Han getting captured, the rebels just escaping by the skin of their teeth. But thing is, I mean, you knew that there's going to be some kind of hope that the main characters were going to somehow be able to come back from this, but pretty much the only ones that really managed to escape in Rogue One are just side characters and random cameos. So I would have liked to have seen Jin or Cassian, blind kung fu not Jedi guy. I would kind of like to have seen them show up in other stuff, but obviously the way this movie ended, we're not going to be getting that. So, I mean, on its own as a sci-fi movie, it's a good movie. The story did what it needed to do. The special effects were really awesome looking. The CGI work for Tarkin was really good, even if they kind of dropped the ball with Leia. But another thing that gets me, right? If you've seen a Star Wars movie before, it's got the whole classic a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Then, boom, you get Star Wars pulling back, and then you get the big opening crawl. We get the long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, but we don't get the opening crawl. In fact, Star Wars doesn't show up anywhere in the title at all. After the flashback scene where Jin escapes, her father getting captured and her mother getting stupidly killed, it just says Rogue One in big yellow and black letters. No crawl, no Star Wars. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I would say see it. Just because, I mean, it is Star Wars, and I mean, to keep the series going. But Star Wars has definitely been done better. It's been done worse. I would direct your attention to Attack of the Clones, where Anakin went, "If you're suffering as much as I am right now, please tell me." I definitely was. So it's definitely better than that, but it's not the best Star Wars out there. People said it is, but to me, it just wasn't. But that's just my thoughts, my take on it. So I mean, like I said, I would say see it for yourself, make your own judgment, and I'll see you guys next time. Later.